Hey guys, I'm Alex Giebert with BFE Adventures, and today I'm going to discuss whether or not it's worth buying the old CB500X. Stay tuned. Okay guys, so I want to give you a semi-thorough review, kind of explaining positives, negatives about this entry-level adventure bike. Some people would even argue whether or not it is an adventure bike. I argue more of the stance of you can make anything an adventure bike if you're brave enough to take it where we take these things. As you can tell, this thing has been off-road. It's been out in the mud with me today, actually, and so I thought, what better time than right after I get off of it to compare it to some of the other things. Now, most of my experience in the adventure bike category are big bikes. Okay, I've had a Super Tenere, I've had a BMW GS 1200, or we currently have these in the stable. We got KTM 1190, Africa Twin, then we got this guy. I've also owned a KLR 650. I would say that's its closest competition, so I will give you a couple comparisons there. So I've actually had a couple KLRs, two different generations, even though they're pretty much the same thing. So I will kind of compare them. So if you are looking to get into the entry-level category, sometimes you may think you want something bigger than what you need. Okay, I'm going to tell you where this is most at home. This is a fantastic commuter bike that you can also take off-road. Okay, it's very low seat height. It's very great for shorter riders. I have this fitted to fit somebody more my size, up to about 6 foot. After 6 foot, it starts getting a little cramped in here, but that's with bar risers, that's with lowered pegs, and this actually feels very, very comfortable. It does not feel like my Africa Twin. That feels like a big dirt bike. This definitely feels like it is an entry-level adventure bike. It does, but that being said, it is totally capable. I have taken this thing anywhere that I've taken the big bikes. The suspension is its biggest weak point. There's a few different ways you can combat that. You can just, don't try and take it off of a double. Or there's rally raid kits, and you can also just get it resprung. I know that this is part of our stable in BFE Adventures as a rental bike, and this is actually for a couple reasons. So most people see these big, around the world and or a long way around, and these videos where these people are taking these massive bikes on these crazy trips. So they see, pro riders ripping KTM 1290s around corners, and they think that that's what they can do or want to do. And then once they get on these bikes, they're actually extremely daunting. Now, coming from a guy that owns big bikes and has owned plenty of big adventure bikes, this thing is a freaking riot. Okay, my Africa Twin is currently in pieces right now. I'm putting some new stuff on it. So I took the Africa Twin out today, and this thing is a blast. So if you're looking for fun, this is it. Oh, and to be clear, this is a 2013 model, and there is a dramatic difference in 2016, I believe. There was a few upgrades to the bike. It got LED lights and stuff like that. And then the big upgrade came in 2019 when it started coming with a 19-inch front wheel. So those are key differences in the generations of the CBs. Otherwise, they're pretty relatively unchanged. So the reason I decided to just get one of these is because nowadays, just post-COVID, to buy one of these bikes, you would be paying pretty much what the MSRP was to buy anything slightly newer. This one was practically brand new when I bought it from somebody, and so I got, here's my special guest again. So I got this from somebody with relatively no miles, virtually no miles on it, for at least a reasonable price considering what they are going for used now. So that's why I went this route. So if you're looking at getting into it, you don't need a newer one. This bike, like I said, didn't come with the 19-inch front, but with the 705 Shinko modification on the front, it still has the same height of the rolling height of the tire. So that's the important part that we got going on there. All right. Now let's talk about comfort, power, and handling, and then I'll quit talking so much. Comfort. Like I said, you're going to want bar risers most likely. you're gonna want some kind of lowered pegs if you're over, let's say 5'6". If you're under that, you'll probably be totally fine. You're definitely gonna want some crash protection if you take it off-road. But other than that, I like having hand guards as well, just to keep the wind off my hands in the winter. It helps, and obviously to protect your hands when you're riding through the woods from trees and twigs and stuff like that. These bikes are so heavy, I don't honestly trust that hand guard to, not flip up and break my levers. It's more to just keep stuff off of my hands, honestly. Comfort-wise, I can't speak to the stock seat because when I bought this one, it already had the seat concept seat on it. I will say this seat is incredible, so if you're thinking about upgrading, Seat Concepts is where it's at. So, and I don't get paid by that. I'm just saying it's a great seat. Some other stuff to note. It feels like a small bike. That being said, it's comfortable being a small bike. Your feet are firmly planted on the ground. When you're stopped, like when you're off-road, it's much easier. I feel more brave on this. I would huck this thing up a hill faster than I would ever huck my GS up a hill. I just, one thing, this costs about half the price, but also this thing, it's so low. If I ever got into a problem, I could put a foot down and dab somewhere, whereas on those big bikes, if you have any experience on them, you're not putting your foot down, or if you do, something bad's gonna happen, most likely. This thing, I have no problem putting my foot down, spinning it around. If things get a little iffy, obviously with all this mud I was riding in today, I had no problem just letting this thing dance underneath me because it's so small. So that's a plus side to the comfort. Looks like I thought we were gonna get a special guest here. Anyway, moving on, the power. Okay, it is a 500, so don't expect it to shock your socks off. It is not an exciting bike to ride unless you want to have fun with it. Hey, there's one of our special guests. So it is a twin, so you got that as a plus side over the KLR. So now I'll do a quick little comparison to the KLR. So power-wise, the KLR feels more like a thumper. If you're familiar with that, you'll get a little more torque out of it, whereas this is a little more rev-happy. But the plus side to that is this thing will tool down the highway way easier than my KLR would. Now, anything over 70, 75 miles an hour, come on, Sky, come on. Anything over 70, 75 miles an hour isn't really what this is. It's just not comfortable. You'd have to swap out sprockets or something like that. If you were gonna be cruising all day on it for multiple days in a row, I would consider putting a taller sprocket on the front. So that, again, the power is there. It is plenty torquey to handle anything off-road, but it doesn't get you in trouble. So that's why this is such a good entry bike. This is why it is a good rental bike. These guys, they try and ride with us and they want to jump on these big bikes, and they're super intimidating. And it turns out something like this is actually way more fun because they end up fighting the bike and it's just too much to handle all the time. Whereas this, you can actually ride it and you can twist the throttle and feel the bike underneath of you, and it's a much more visceral experience, and you get to enjoy it rather than hanging on to a 100 horsepower monster off-road, So this thing is much more manageable and still totally fun. I don't know why anybody would need to go faster than 60 miles an hour off-road. This thing can handle it. So that moves on from the power. Handling. This thing from the factory handles like it's on rails. It is an incredible street bike. It's got 1717 setup, and so it's much more road biased than your GSs that had the 19 in the front, or your KTMs, or your the Africa Twin that's got the 21 in the front. Those definitely don't turn in like this does. This thing feels like it's on ice skates. It is incredible. Now that being said, it also likes to dive off-road when you have that setup on it. So what I did after reading a bunch of the forums, Shinko makes a 705 that's a super tall profile tire, so I actually put that on here, and it ends up being the same profile as a 19-inch rim with the stock Dunlops on there from the factory. I believe they're Dunlops. And so now it does not turn in as sharply, which is actually how I prefer it. I can still ride more aggressively when it doesn't dip so hard, and it makes it much more maneuverable off-road, just kind of gliding over rocks and going down gravel roads. Now, that's the other thing I'll say, off-road handling for this thing on the stock wheels and tires, Just as long as it's dry, you'll be totally fine. You can do most of the stuff. The ground clearance is a bit of a hindrance, you know, trying to go over trees and stuff. This thing, you just hit the skid plate a lot harder when you try and go over a tree. But other than that, it's great. But I will say this little addition of the taller tire definitely did make this thing way more manageable off-road. Again, there's also rally raid kits that you can make for these that I think it's a 19-inch front wheel. It might even be a 21, or maybe there's an option of either. I don't want to misquote. But overall, all I'm getting at is for an entry-level bike, this thing is incredible. And at the price point, it's unbelievable. You can pick up these bikes. Now, you're not going to get one kitted out like this, but you can get these bikes for $4,000. I mean, that's less than half of the cost of a used GS, or less than half the cost of an Africa Twin, or a KTM, or you know, even trying to find a T7 or something like that. You know, that's kind of in a different category. But this thing is incredible. It's comparable price-wise to the KLRs. It's definitely more street biased. It's way more comfortable on the road than the KLR was. It feels more at home. I haven't taken a passenger on it, but I can already tell it would have more. It would be happier on the highway with a passenger on it. My KLR was not happy at all. So I hope that clears up some stuff. If you guys have any questions, please ask them below in the comments, and I'd be happy to answer them for you. I hope that clears some stuff up, and hope you guys take care. Oh, and then last thing, make sure and check us out on Facebook. Check us out, or check out our other YouTube videos. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. We're doing reviews all the time. We have a bunch of different bikes we're going to be reviewing in the upcoming weeks. We now, as the weather starts warming up, we're going to start getting some pretty cool riding footage in. And feel free to reach out to us at our website, www.bfeadventures.com, and look us up if you ever want to go for a ride with us. We're doing rides all over the Midwest, Tennessee, North Carolina, Arkansas. So if you ever want to join us on a ride, let us know. Take care.